Welcome to Authentic with Brazil 201. I'm your host, Brazil 201, and on today's episode, we're going to talk about South Park, the leader of the quote unquote resistance. What an interesting 10 years it has been for South Park. Now, if we go back 10 years ago to when South Park started its continuity era instead of its bottled formula, in 2015, in the fall of 2015, it is when this new era of South Park begins, and we are introduced to a character called PC Principal, right? PC Principal was introduced as a militant enforcer of political correctness, parodying the new wave of woke rules that were coming from academia and activist spaces. And the message was it was more or less about one issue, but more about like the climate. How suddenly everyone was supposed to obey these new codes of language, identity, and sensitivity or be punished. And remember, we were not in the pronoun and bio era. That shit all appeared in late 2020. Right? Its impact is that it puts South Park ahead of the mainstream conversations. In 2015, a lot of people still thought PC culture complaints were just the right wing boogeyman, and South Park showed it was a real cultural force worth mocking. And in reality, to what was then future Bernie voters, or a seismic amount of Bernie voters that would then turn into Elizabeth Warren voters in 2020, they were saying South Park is anti-trans, it is anti-democratic, they're suck, they're bigots, they're racist, blah blah blah. Ironically, a message that we heard about every podcaster in 2024, and thus begun the beginning of the rightward shift of men from the Democratic Party. In 2019, 4 years into the continuity era of South Park, and 3 years into Trump's first term, we have the transports episode, which was based on the what the hell is the name of the person, the Leah Thomas Penn State situation, right? What they did is they satirized the controversy around trans women competing in women's sports. It exaggerated the character as strong women competitions being dominated by hypermasculine Randy Savage style trans athlete. The message wasn't so much as an anti-trans screed, but it was a critique of how the institutions were ignoring obvious biological difference out of fear or backlash. It reflected an emerging cultural debate: fairness in sports versus deference to identity. The impact is this episode was a pivot. It was like in 2015, right? They mocked the speech policing side of PC culture. In 2019, they pushed directly into the policy consequences of progressive ideology, as did it years before mainstream Democrats even acknowledged the sports issue. And now it's 2020, it's 2025. Trump won on a they them ad, and the men and women sports issue is an 80-20 issue that is not going to change at all. And yet the 20% still live on blue skies shouting, "Hi, my pronouns are." Now comes 2023. We are 3 years into the Biden era. We have the Panderverse special. What they mocked is Disney's identity pandering and corporate wokeness. That every character is replaced with a diverse checkbox version, right? We had a Black Hartman, a Latina Kyle, Asian Kenny, and Kathleen Kennedy is portrayed as this mindless executive stamping "make it female, make it gay" on everything. Something that a lot of shows began to do post 2020 as they felt guilty. As you saw, the cop shows were like, "We have to be better police," even though we're fictional. And what mattered is that South Park was calling out the entertainment industry itself, not just culture at large, but they turned the mirror on Hollywood, fears driven obsession with identity politics, and representation for profit. And it was a moment where fans across the spectrum, left, right, apolitical, looked at South Park and said, okay, they're saying what no one in the industry is allowed to say. Now we have 2025, the new modern era of South Park. South Park returned one day before the merger Paramount and one day after the Colbert canceling. And they have gone from mocking campus police, mocking progressive polity contradictions, mocking corporate wokeness and entertainment itself, being hated by anyone that would be considered far left, an AOC supporter, an Elizabeth Warren supporter. You're now modern Zoran Mamdani supporters. And now people view them as the cultural resistance. They're not aligning with Republicans, they're aligning with the majority who feel uh, alienated by, once upon a time, right? they were not aligning with Republicans. They were like aligning with people who felt alienated by Hollywood and the elite liberal dogma. Now, unlike Mara Rogan, who talked about these issues in interviews, South Park packaged it into iconic satire that gets stuck in people's heads and makes it more culturally potent. So, in our 3 new episodes of the Resistance era of South Park as the hero of the left, we had, uh, for those who remember, Mr. Garrison, was was a Trump stand-in in the first Trump term. And from what we learned in the first episode of the 2025 South Park is that Garrison did win the election in 2024, but his vice president was Trump, and Garrison decided not to take office. So Trump became president in the situation, and no one in South Park knew. And we have the Mar-a-Lago-fication of the White House. We have Occupy DC. We have a little baby fat JD Vance. We have the ICE troops taking away all of Randy's Mexicans that work on Integrity Farms. We also have the whole situation of Donald Trump basically now being the new version of the original South Park back in the 90s, the Saddam Hussein type character, where it's his face moving around like a crazy person. Trump is banging Satan. We see Trump seems to be a key character now in South Park. And like the whole situation with New South Park is funny because it seems everybody is miserable with um, Donald Trump in office. It's truly amazing. Oh, we also have the Chat GPT coming back. And it's interesting how everyone who was raging on South Park from 2015 to 2023 saying South Park is anti-vax, anti-trans, anti-woke, anti-this, but because South Park, similar to Gavin Newsom, is leading the fight, despite the fact that their parent company had to pay a $10 million fine, cancel Colbert, and a bunch of other situations. Also, we had the Kristen Noem situation where her face falls off and they have to Botox her nonstop all the time. I listen. I do love South Park, and I love South Park when it was critiquing the left. I like South Park when it's critiquing the right, and I'm really upset, man. Not at South Park, but the theme of the season seems to be that Trump is making everyone miserable, right? Cartman feels depressed. He's angry because in the actually no, in the second episode, right? Cartman has turned into Charlie Kirk now, and we haven't seen Cartman in episode 3, which is interesting. We didn't have the kids at all in episode 3, but in episode 2, Cartman became Charlie Kirk because Clyde became Cartman. And the whole woke is dead and all the other shit. Clyde is dead inside. Mr. Mackey lost his job, so he's an ICE agent. PC Principal has been rebranded as Power Christian Principal. Talk about the turn of the decade. Randy lost his farm and his dream. And Townley is now a cum rag. Just that Donald Trump and JD Vance are coming into. It is quite the story of what is happening. I think South Park has been fantastic. I like what they're doing. Apparently, the White House is like really angry at the entire situation in regards to South Park, but South Park does not air on broadcast television, so they can't do anything about it. It's it's great. I loved it. People are like saying, but it's funny because now people on the right are saying South Park has gone too far. They've been unbelievable, disrespectful, and disgusting. It's not funny anymore. They're like Donald Trump took a bullet for America. I just I enjoy it, and I think the 2 week thing is better because my God, I can't believe we've had South Park back for 6 weeks now, but 3 episodes, and they got their $1.5 billion deal, but I just can't believe everything happened. It's been truly interesting, to say the least, in this new era. And it's pushing the boundaries. And maybe we needed something like this. But I do think the left, who's now saying South Park is your resistance hero, need to really think about all the chaos that happened from 2015 to 2023 on South Park that they were raging and bitching about. Because it's that nonsense that brought us here.